Was actually, I think when futures opened, it was almost twice the decline. So the small caps were down 4, NASDAQ down over 3. It's good to see sort of markets are catching their breath. It's the second Monday shock, right? Last week was DeepSeek.
In this video, Lee of Fundstrat discusses the market's potential reaction to President Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. He notes that while recent market declines have been relatively small, the fear of larger overreactions remains. He highlights the resilience of the market so far, but acknowledges that consumer sentiment could shift if rising costs impact everyday expenses, potentially leading to political pressures on the administration. Overall, Lee believes that while there are short-term challenges, the market may stabilize as the negotiation progresses unfold.
In place to sort of protect markets from the downside. I know people think this is an unlimited risk scenario for stocks, but if the tariffs come into play and other countries go into recession, those central banks will be easing, which will actually improve liquidity. So I'd say that as bad as things look, I do think there's downside protection.
What do you think our central bank will do in reaction to this? Because President Trump, a week and a half ago, or a week ago, weeks go by so quickly, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, said that he would like to see our central bank, along with other central banks, ease rates. Our central bank did not really seem to go along with that based on the numbers and the inflation data that they've seen.
Well, for the Fed, they'll have to tread carefully because in the short term, would be an inflationary impact. Mm-hmm. It may not change inflation expectations, but it's going to be realized inflation. So I do think it makes sense for the Fed to actually tread carefully. But if I was a central banker in a country that got hit with tariffs and they're getting pushed into recession, of course they'd be easing.
You know, I think the market looks at this and thinks, well, President Trump likes a strong stock market. He likes to see those numbers on a daily basis. And maybe there's the sense that he will not get too stringent with things if he thinks that there's a big impact in the market. Do you think that too?
Yes. I mean, I think ultimately the goal of the President Trump is to make the U.S. stronger, both companies and the economy. There may be some short-term pain, and it's hard to tell how much of this is an investment in improving U.S. competitive positioning. I think it is kind of a test of resilience right now, and the fact that we're only down 1.5 percentage points mm-hmm. on pretty major universal tariffs is actually a sign of resilience.
A sign of resilience or a sign that we don't think it's going to continue? I guess that's my question.
It's hard to tell at the moment, but usually the market overreacts. So if this is the first reaction, I would probably guess that the second reaction is pulling back from some of that decline.
Can I just ask you, it's both a sort of a combination market meets policy meets politics moment, which is, there's a sense in the market, I think, that this is some negotiation and something happens quickly. I don't know how quickly, though, we're talking about. And then the second order effect, not a second order, maybe first order effect is Americans like myself who love avocados. And when my avocado, no, I'm not joking. When the avocado costs so much more than it did before, and not just avocados, but name all this stuff that's going to happen in the supermarket. And I imagine
there are a lot of vegetables and fruits
in the next week, right? Like this is going to happen. Right. And then the question is, what kind of political pressure there's going to actually be on President Trump when the American public starts saying, I'm at the supermarket and this is not working for me? Or do you think that the American public is going to say, I'm willing to accept this pain? I have my Super Bowl party. I'm at my Super Bowl party, but I can't have all this stuff. Is that going to be okay? Because I remember being on TikTok during the Biden administration when people would go on from the supermarket and say that the world was coming to an end because eggs cost what they cost. So what say you?
I do think Americans vote with their wallet. So if they're feeling the pain, just like when they feel pain at the pump, it does affect confidence. And I think if people are feeling in their wallet what they have to pay, and many Americans actually don't have an ability to absorb all these huge costs. So I think you're going to feel the pain.
Do you think the companies absorb the pain? Or do you think, that's the other thing about inflation, which is sort of an interesting thing. There's been these moments where some companies have absorbed the inflation. Some companies have actually done the exact opposite. They have exacerbated the situation because they said, well, look, if everything's going up, we should actually get ahead.
They have to raise their costs.
We got to get ahead of this thing now.
That's right. Greedflation was, I think, a bigger problem before. I think there is a lot more pushback, and it's going to be tougher for companies to pass on prices. But I'd also, take some of the executive order at face value. This isn't really about rewriting all of trade practices as much as it is trying to get Canada and Mexico to talk about the flow of illegal drugs and illicit chemicals, et cetera. So,
well, to be honest, he has to have that. He has to have a crisis at the border because otherwise it is Congress's place to raise tariffs. If it's an emergency situation, then he can declare an executive order. He says Europe is going to be next. What's the emergency that we say is the reason that we're raising tariffs on Europe?
Yeah, and maybe that's when the market will actually push back as well.